Good afternoon, ma'am. Deepika ma'am here.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, can you start?
Ma'am, you are not audible. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible. Am I
Okay.
audible now?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible now.
Shall we start now?
Okay, ma'am.
Good afternoon once again. This is day 5, third session, and today's third session will be on report preparation. And to speak on this topic, we have Dr. Deepika, Assistant Professor at NIT Yardstick. So before we start, I would give a brief description about Dr. Agrawal. Dr. Deepika Agrawal received her PhD degree in Wireless Sensor Networks from NIT Raipur in 2019. She has done her MPhil from Jeffrey Institute of Information Technology, Noida, and she is currently a faculty in Department of Information Technology, National Institute of Technology, Raipur. Her research area interest includes optimizing energy efficiency in wireless sensor networks, security, and Internet of Things. So we have a lot of things to learn from Dr. Deepika. So over to you, ma'am, and we are looking forward to learn and gain a lot of knowledge on this topic of report preparation in research methodology. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am, for the nice introduction. So I'll share my screen.
Sure, ma'am.
I hope my screen is visible.
Ma'am, yes, ma'am. It's visible now.
Okay. So today we are going to talk about one very important and specific aspect of writing, which has become quite prominent in today's world, and this is report writing. So now before we go on to talk about report writing, let me ask you a simple question as, why are reports written? Any idea? Why are reports written? And is it essential to write reports? Also, is it essential to learn the art of report writing? Okay. So in today's lecture, we will focus on these various aspects of what is report writing and what are the various processes involved in writing and why a report is written, what is the significance of a report and what can a report do. Okay, so since all of us are tech savvy and information savvy as well, so you might be reading newspaper and being tuned to TV channels every now and then. So you might know that government started a new Motor Vehicle Act 2019. So you might have seen that with the enforcement of this act. So what does this act say? So the new Motor Vehicle Act says that if you are driving a vehicle without a helmet, or if you do not have the proper papers, or if you are violating the Motor Vehicle Act, then you are bound to be fined. Okay, so many people might not have liked this news. The reactions are very varied. Some people like this act, some people does not like this act. Okay, but then there is a need to think about why such policy came into the act. Okay, so why was the need to bring this act? How could it have been done? And you know, if you go into the depth of all this, you will find that based on a report, it was found that every year around 5 lakh road accidents take place, out of which 1.5 lakh people lose their lives, and the remaining 3.5 lakh people, either they become crippled or they are having some kind of problems. Okay, so government has decided to secure the lives of people by such an act. Okay, So this act was brought into practice. But how could it have been happened? So this could have happened because of a report. Okay, so how people should know? How could the government know that such and such was a problem? So this came into light only when proper reporting was done. Hence the importance of report. So it is the time that we knew what actually is a report, what is its origin, and how can a report be defined. Okay, so when we talk about report suddenly, so several kinds of reports or several sorts of reports flashed into our mind. Examination report, medical report, investigation report, lab reports, right? So like stock verification reports and several other reports. But how are these reports different from each other, and how can these reports be written? So report is written based on a need. So when we talk about what a report report, basically the word report has its origin from the Latin word that is reporto or reportier. Okay, so it is actually a combination of two words, re and portier. So all of you might know that what is porter. So a porter is a person who transfers our good from one place to another, right? So likewise, when we talk about a report, the literal meaning is a piece of information from someone to be given to someone who wants to use that information. Hence, the literal definition of a report can be, it is actually a piece of information. Now, what a piece of communication? Okay, so report is actually a piece of communication. So if we say that anything that can be written, because when we say that it is a written piece, so anything that can be written, we can call this report. So if I mean if you write a poem, then that can also be a report. If somebody writes a story, that also can be a report, right? A play for any matter can be a report. A novel can be a report. Okay, so of course they can be provided they have actually some amount of facts that is involved in this, and that's why you can say that book also is a report based on some facts. So we can define report as a formal communication. Okay, report is a factual piece of writing, and hence it is a formal piece of communication written for a specific purpose. Okay, so I mean all these reports that we have talking about, these reports vary. When we talk about an examination report, naturally student comes into our mind. Okay, when we talk about lab reports, experiment come into question. When we talk about investigation report, police investigation, right? Another investigation come into force or practice. So a report is a formal communication written for a specific purpose, meaning thereby the purpose of every report will be different. It includes a description of procedures. So now how do you come to know like you want to write a report? So as it is a factual thing, naturally you have to do a lot of things before you come to write the report. So report writing is the last stage. Okay, so last stage of what? A procedure followed for collection and analysis of data. Like you have a problem, then you will do some kind of analysis. You will collect data, you will analyze data, and then reporting should be done. So it is the last stage, that is report. So it is factual. When we talk about the facts, so data comes into the question, their significance, the conclusion that we can draw from them, and recommendation if we have any. So report is a factual formal piece of communication written for a specific purpose, written for specific audience. It includes a description of procedures followed for collection and analysis of data. And out of this data, based on this data, the conclusions drawn from them and recommendation if required. Okay. So reports have got defined audience. Other forms of writing will not have defined audience. Okay. Rather, they will have a varied audience. Reports are based on facts and investigation. Other forms of writing are based on emotion, imagination, expression, right? So there is no autonomy in reports, while other forms of writing have got autonomy involved in them. So if you have a look at this slide, you can find the difference between the report and other writing. So one question comes into our mind, like, can reports be presented orally? Yes, reports can be presented orally, but there are many other forms of writing which are confined only to writing. Like if somebody writes a novel, can entire novel be presented orally? No, not at all. So writing in terms of report is based on demand. That is why you find when something goes wrong, and the world that we live, everyday things go wrong, and when things go wrong, they actually have to be investigated, they have to be examined, and when people examine, then they will have some kind of reports with them. So when we talk about thesis writing, so when you submit a thesis, so this thesis are sent to the examiners, and ultimately we are waiting for their report. So this is a thesis report. So every report is actually based on demand, and other forms of writing, they are not demand based, they are actually choice based. Okay, so other forms of writing are choice based and reports are demand based. So people do not write reports for their own. They write reports for organization, for companies, for institution, for markets, and so on. So now what do these reports do? So reports actually let us know the progress of a project, the progress of an assignment, right? So when we are working on a project from time to time, whether we got a project, whether we got to write a thesis, whether we have got to do some assignments from time to time, so you are asked about the progress, and that is possible through reports. So reports also sometimes things go wrong, so that can also be revealed through reports. Reports also reveal gaps in thinking, and through reports people are made aware. That is why when something new is to take place, either before the launching of it, okay, so it is mandatory to tell the people, like if any organization is launching some product, so they have to tell the people. And how should people know that this and this organization is launching some product? So they should know through reports, right? So and report helps in decision making, and it also establishes harmony. So imagine when a group of people are not having proper communication and things go wrong. And when something goes wrong, so it has to be investigated, it has to be examined. So a conclusion should be drawn, and the report writer comes to a conclusion. Okay, but there was no proper communication among people, among employees, among group members. Hence, this kind of miscommunication should happen. So with the help of report, people can be brought closer. I mean, all sorts of communication bring people closer. And reports actually help in establishing a sort of harmony between workers, between employees, between group members, and so on. So here is an observation that is paramount importance. It says all of you who are working hard for getting a job, or those who are fortunately in job, they might find it quite essential. So a report is a professional's only tangible product. There is one observation which says that a report is a professional's only tangible product. Why tangible? Because it tells us many qualities of people. It presents his investigation, his testing and experimentation. If his efforts are to count in the judgment of a superior, he must describe clearly what he has done and what he has not done. So when you are saying something to somebody, that is also in a form of report, right? But what are you saying that has to be based on facts? So what, hence he must saw the significance of his work and often the engineer's written report, which is only contact with the management. And not only engineer, every professional, whatever he or she does, that is possible to be shown to reports. Hence, a report is a professional's only tangible product, right? So let us confine ourselves to discussing some of the reports only by knowing what they can do. Okay. So I mean, when we talk about the update of a progress with the help of a report, and this progress has to be done from time to time. Hence, they can be called as a periodic report. These periodic reports help us to monitor operations. I mean, what has been done, how much of work has been done, how much of work is left, how many men, how many women, how many materials are required, right? What amount of time is required. So all this can be done through periodic reports. So these are periodic reports and it is used to monitor the operations. Then comes situational reports. Now this situational reports hire of a very routine nature because it only describes non-recurring activities. Maybe you go on a trip, maybe you go somebody goes on a conference, somebody goes to have some statistical analysis and whatsoever. So now this thing, since they are not very frequent, right? So that is why we call it situational report. And in situational report, language plays a very important role. And then we come to the investigative and informative report. So most of the reports are informative in nature, right? But this, then some reports go one step ahead and they interpret things. But as an investigate report is simply based on the examination of a particular situation of problems. And then you simply supply facts. So you do not do anything. I mean, there is no rule or any kind of conclusion. You cannot recommend anything. You are simply to find out what is what, and then you will supply all the facts through this investigative report or informative report. Another category is compliance report. Now, this compliance report actually comply with government norms, government rules and regulations. Suppose you are asked, or some manager has been asked to ensure things that go well in your organization, and there are particular norms for that. So from time to time, the government or the organization also wants to see whether these norms are being followed or not, right? If some major amount has been granted, how that amount is being utilized, what are the norms being complied, what are the norms that are not being complied. Hence, this is called compliance report. Then we have recommendation reports. So recommendation reports are those reports, suppose you are going to make a decision, right? Is it or is it not? So you cannot make a decision without the help of a report. So based on that, what you do is in a recommendation report, you are going to justify. Suppose you are going to purchase some new product, and suppose you are going to launch some new program, or you are going to make certain changes. So for all the changes to take place, you actually provide a sort of recommendation report. And based on that report, some decisions may be taken. Then we come to yardstick reports. Now, what are yardstick reports? So these reports actually help in measuring the alternatives. Suppose there are certain options that are available to us. So what should we go with, or are we going to invite this contractor, or are we going to give this project to some other organization? So we have certain yardsticks and we have to make a decision. So we cannot make a decision unless and until we have several alternatives. But these alternatives have to be measured, and then you have to establish consistent criteria. So with the help of this yardstick reports, you are actually going to formulate a criteria for allowing, for disapproving, for judging, and then you have this yardstick report is very important. Then you have feasibility report. So what are feasible reports? Feasible reports, as the term itself says, feasibility. So by feasibility, we mean actually, is there any scope that if we go with this, we will have certain benefits. So feasibility report actually analyzes and examines the benefits as well as the problem. So if we go by this, if we launch any product, if we gave this project to this party, then whether we get benefit or we will have certain kind of problems. So feasibility report help us to decide whether there are benefits and whether there are problems, and based on that we can take some action. Hence, we divide up our report into two categories, formal as well as informal, in organizations. Okay, so in organizations, there are informal reports that we have already talked about, like letter report, sort report. So all sort reports are actually informal. And you know, when some major decision is to be taken, then there are times when we want to understand and ensure that such a step either will be beneficial or will be disastrous. So for that, we will go for an interpretive or analytical report. Okay, so let us talk about the difference between formal and informal report. So one major difference is that informal report is very short. It does not have any design. It simply depends upon the primary source. It does not go for the secondary source, while formal reports are mostly long, because they may be in the form of a letter, they may be in the form of a memo, so they may be written in the first person narrative. Okay, informal report is written in a first person narrative, and while formal report will be written in the third person narrative. Formal report usually may be longer, will have visual aids, and it will depend upon information from both primary as well as secondary sources. Now, as I am saying that reports are of different nature and there can be long list of reports. So it is better to classify these reports. And how can we classify these reports? So we classify these reports in three categories, right? So on the basis of formality. So first category is informative report, analytical report, and routine report. So when you simply have to send some information that can be possible only by informal means, you simply go to write an informal report. But when some major decisions are to be taken, okay, so when some major decisions have to be taken, and it requires a lot of analysis, a lot of interpretation, and lot of discussion, you go for formal reports, that is analytical reports. So based on formality, the length and the frequency, these categories are divided. So short report will be more in frequency, while longer reports, they have to be written very discreetly. That is why they will take a lot of time. So we have divided this report into three categories. First one is informative, then analytical or interpretive, and then routine reports. So what are informative reports? Okay, so this informative reports, when we talk about the word informative, so it actually tells us that informative reports will be simply giving some information. It is only confined to information, right? And then when it is aims and objectives are also very much restricted, and it is expected to give or provide information. I mean, you're not going to do anything with an informative report. That is why informative report will be very shorter, maybe 1 or 2 page in many organizations. So simply you have a format of informative report where you are going to fill certain piece of information. And the report writer, whoever is writing the report, will simply put his signature. I mean, the report writer is not supposed to provide any kind of conclusion or any kind of analysis or any kind of recommendation. So these are the examples of informative reports like policy statement, readership survey, sales report, credit reports, employee booklets, committee reports, and production reports. So these reports only tell what is the number, how much have we gained. It does not talk about why we have failed. What can be the other ways to improve sales? What can be other ways to retain the customer and all. So they can be read when we talk about the interpretive or analytical. So they can be just for reading purpose. No kind of analysis is done. Nothing kind of recommendation is provided. Now next is interpretive or analytical report. So what are analytical report? Analytical report, if we take the words of the report itself, so it will have a scope of analysis. We have an ample scope of analysis, we have an ample scope of investigation. Hence, this report will be longer. You can make use of certain kind of illustrations. Okay, so for example, if you are going to write a report for an organization which actually wants to know about the trends of sales or the trends of satisfaction about a particular project or a particular product, so naturally you will take a time like 5 years. So naturally, these 5 years, how can you show that we are taking the data of 5 years? So with the help of certain kind of illustrations, with the help of certain kind of graphs, chart, pie charts, so there may be several tables also that is involved in this kind of report. An analytical report will have certain kind of findings, certain kind of recommendations, and based on that analytical report, you can find a solution to a certain problem. So most of the reports are written only because it is the need of the hour. Like we have a certain kind of problems, and when we are trying to find a solution for that problem, then analytical report has to be made. So as it is need based, and when some kind of problem arises, we want to write a report, and when you want to write a report, then naturally you are actually providing a solution to the problem. So that is why you do not write a report yourself. There are certain kind of people, organization which actually instruct you to write reports, and when they do so, they actually give you some problem. So this analytical report may lead to decision making. Now, examples of analytical reports are advertising reports, examination reports, accounting reports, statistical analysis, market surveys, etc. So it actually goes in depth, and that is why this report goes longer. Maybe at times the length of the report may go between 20 to 25 pages. Then we have the third category of reports, that is routine reports. So routine reports, by its terminology itself, it tells they are of routine nature. So routine nature means they keep on being written, okay, but at routine intervals, at regular intervals. So the specification of this routine reports that are written regularly but at fixed intervals. So for example, in most of the organization, you will find annual reports are being written. Right, so there is a particular time, like towards the end of the year or towards the end of the financial year. So they may vary from one organization to another, but it is actually written at fixed interval. And these reports actually, they provide us information regarding production, sales, performance of an employee, performance of certain kind of product, inventory, and some other nature also. So it is actually confined to a fixed pro forma. Pro forma is fixed for every organization. So it is a fixed pro forma, but pro forma for every organization is different. And after certain amount of time, there may be some changes in the pro forma, but that no changes will be effectuated based on a report. Hence, the need and the importance of a report and then language is not that important in a routine report. So whenever we talk about language, right? So for interpretive report, the report writer has come to a conclusion that these are the some major steps that can be taken. So interpretive report will become persuasive in nature, whereas routine report is not persuasive in nature. It is actually a kind of informative report where language does not play a vital role. So we have some examples of routine report like progress report, inspection report, confidential report, and laboratory report. So you will find that if you are working in an organization, from time to time, your progress is also being evaluated, your progress is also being assessed. So for that, there is a fixed pro forma, and that fixed pro forma has several attributes, and that actually can be measured about an employee. And the report writer, whoever may be writing, what he or she does is actually fills up that information. So it does not provide any kind of solid conclusion, and nothing can be nothing can be extracted from that report. So any decision that will be taken will be based on the interpretation of that report, right? So routine report can be written regularly, but at fixed interval. Language is not at all important in this, and it is confined to a fixed pro forma. Now we have other reports as well, like management report and special report. So what is management report and how are management report different? So in a management report, it is not that much of interpretive. For a management report, all you need to do is you actually the audience member or the leaders that are interested more only on the results. And that is why this management reports are non-technical. And it is also written by a non-technical people. So it simply focuses on result. It uses a language that is journalistic. A language is totally journalistic, and of course you have scope for the use of illustrations. You can use any kind of graph, chart, pie chart, etc. So management report does not interpret too much, but then it simply shows the result. Then we have another category of a report, and it becomes very important during times of crisis. So we can label them as special report. Now this special report, by the title itself, they are special. And these reports are not written every now and then. The frequency of such reports is very less. So these special reports are written only during the time of crisis. Hence the report writer has got freedom. Like when you are writing something during the critical hours or during the crisis, you actually want to get out of that crisis. So in order to get out of that crisis, naturally you have to convince people. So language has been a very important role in convincing people, in persuading people. Okay, so use of language. So this meticulous use of language is expected to be a part of this special report, because based on this report, your persistent effort to convince people are to come out, and you will help your organization to come out of such a crisis. So such report focus very much on the importance of language. A language has to be used by different. Okay, so these are the various types of reports, and since right from the beginning we have been saying that reports are needed, hence report writing is like we cannot become a perfect report writing just in all one day. We all need to do is we actually need to practice. Okay, so we actually need to practice like how reports are written and what is the format of that in this way. So next comes strategies and structure of report. Like what are the strategies that we need to adopt while writing a report, and what is actually the structure of a report? What are the contents that should be included in report? Okay. So as I said, like poems, stories, short stories, these all are reports, but these are actually not. They do not have a fixed structure. So next we will find out how reports have a different structure than other forms of writing. Reports vary not only in length, but they vary in structure, they vary in terms of language, they vary in terms of strategy. Okay. So a report is, as you know, report is need based, and the report is actually written in response to some instructions or in response to certain demands. Since it is written for a wider audience, because we have been saying that report may go to several people. And when we talk about several people, the first thing we have to find out who is the person who gave you the task of writing the report, and whom and to whom will this report go. So report has to be planned. A report has to have certain strategies. Now, what are these strategies involved? How you start, and why do you think there is a need to write the report? So first we need to know the scope and purpose, right? So when you are going to write a report, or you have been assigned a task of writing a report, first you have to understand what is the purpose, why are you writing this report, right? So naturally you would not be writing the report because you felt very happy, like yeah, I'm very happy and I want to write a report. No, you are going to report, you are going to write a report, you should be writing the report when you have been asked to do so. So that is why you have to understand, if you have been asked to do so, you also might be knowing to whom will this report go, who will be the readers of your report, who will be the audience of your report. So you also have to determine your audience, because a report is a factual, formal, written piece of communication or written piece of information. It has to be based on some data. Here data is very important in a report. So from where will you get the data? From where will you get all the materials? What are the secondary sources? What are the primary sources? So you need to collect the material. But how will you collect the material? Any idea how you will collect the material? How you will collect the material? So collecting the material means collecting the data for your report. And collecting the data, there are several ways of collecting the data. So by different sources. So when you bought all the pieces of information, and these pieces of information actually needs to be organized. So organizing the material, that you have organized the material, because writing the
नीचे मेरा ना बीच में नहीं दिख रहा, जैसे कि उसमें भी साइन हो जाए मेरा। फिर मैंने अपना एरो बनाया, तो मैंने लाइब्रेरी में किया।
any problem? Okay, so report writing is the last step of the entire process. So you are going to write it in a proper manner. You are actually giving it a proper layout or proper structure, a proper format. That is why you will make an outline, and this outline will tell you how to move ahead, how and where to put the information. That is why knowing the strategies of report writing is very essential. So first, you have to know the scope. What will this report do? What is the extent of this report? I mean, because when you write the report, when you have provided the conclusion through a report, you might be thinking how much it will advantage or how much will be it less advantage. So what is actually the scope will be the findings of your reported work in all the situation, or there are certain kind of limitations on that. So that is what you will know, you will come to know when you know the scope and when you know the purpose of your report. And then you are also, when you are going to write a report, you might be having one question as to what reaction will it bring. That is possible based on knowing your audience. Who are the audience members, your immediate boss, or even if your immediate boss is your audience member or the person whom you are going to send this report or submit this report, that you have to ensure. Then you will need to collect the data, then you will need to do certain kind of analysis, and then you will need to do organize your data, and then you will create some outline, like how we will move, how you will proceed further. So as I said, you are not going to write a report because you got up one morning and decided you will write a report. It is not possible at all. Hence, writing a report is based on need. When somebody will tell you that you should write a report, and when somebody or maybe any person who will actually authorize you to write a report. So you are authorized to write a report. So authorization is very important here. And who will authorize you? Your boss, or maybe in your organization, whoever is your controlling officer, who will provide you or give you the chance of writing a report. And when he gives you or he assigns you the task of writing the report, he will provide you a terms of references. So what are these terms of references? What do you understand by these terms of references? So terms of references are actually a sort of instruction through which you will be provided with some instructions. Okay, so you will be given some instructions about the problem. What is the problem? So instructions about the problem, why is the need to write a report, and these are the instructions, and that are very, very important. So based on these instructions, it will actually help the report writer to identify the problem. And once you know the problem, you can think of what are the data that is required to solve that problem. So maybe this terms of reference will help the report writer in confirming the scope of the report, because when you want to take some major action, so you will always have in your hands the scope of the report. I mean, based on your findings, okay, so you will have certain kind of solution to that particular problem. And then this terms of reference will allow you to clarify all the instructions, because suppose in terms of references there are certain terms which you do not understand. So what can be done when so what can be done if you do not understand the terms of references? Okay, and you can always seek clarification from the person who has authorized you to write this report. So this terms of reference will allow always have a scope to clarify all the instructions before you are going to start writing a report. So once you know the terms of references, then we have certain steps. We have certain steps which are required for writing a report, right? So first step is data collection. Once you know the problem, you go to collect the data. You will collect the data, and then there you have several steps, several ways to collect the data. So what are the different ways you will collect the data? So you know the problem, and when you know the problem, then perhaps you start thinking that there are several methods of data collection, and each method is different, and you may find yourself comfortable with any of the method. So First method of data collection is personal observation. Suppose you are actually going to write a report based on this personal observation. So what is this personal observation? So the personal observation, the word observation itself means to see something with a purpose. Like some event is taking place or you are going to make some kind of observation. So this observation is a very challenging and a very difficult task when you are making any kind of observation. Like you may make any kind of observation about the person, you may make observation about an event, or you may make an observation about an incident. So when you are observing a person, maybe sometimes the person may came to know and he may change his behavior. So through personal observation you can judge the behavior of a person, but this personal observation has got certain limitations. When you are going to observe, are you going to tell people, are you not going to tell people? Like you are going to observe him or her, you are observing him, without any notice, only then this observation method can work. So it has certain kind of limitations. It actually provides you certain clues, certain hints about how that person behavior know. You will find that there are many people who actually behave in one situation in a different manner, in other situation in a different manner. So when you want to collect data through personal observation, some people also see that they write, you if you are going to write what you observe personally, you cannot rewrite on the spot, you have to write later on. So it is also related to some memory. How much do you remember them? So personal observation is a method of data collection and it has got certain limitations. But this is actually the first way and it provides you the first hand information. That is why it is very important. Next, second method of data collection is telephonic interview. So in telephonic interview, you are going to collect the data. You remember and suppose you are going to respond to a person over the telephone, and but he may wants to seek some crucial information. Are you going to provide that information or are you going to not? So there are again limitations in telephonic interview, and when you are going to collect data through telephonic interview, it will become a costly affair. But in today's world, telephone have become very cheap. So, and the prices have come down. But then also conducting a telephone interview for data collection is a very costly method, because even though there is no pain of geographical hassles, like you don't want to travel in telephonic interviews and other things, but there is no surety that you will get to know the nature of the person through telephonic interview. So telephonic interviews are very difficult, and not only from your point of view but also from the point of view of the respondents as well. So respondent every now and then is not prepared to answer questions. Maybe sometimes he or she may take one time for telephonic interview, or he may he take some time, like okay, I will be available on that particular day and that particular time. So he may prepare himself or herself a lot. So there are chances that he may orient or he may also change. He may also change the responses. So it is very difficult on the telephone. Moreover, you cannot talk to the people on the telephone you are in a position to understand what goes in his mind. You cannot. So people may manipulate their voices. Sometimes there are other people also who can speak on behalf of others. So that is why there is a difficulty in collecting the data through telephonic interview. Now next comes personal interview. So in order to collect the data through personal interview, you have to travel a lot and it is very difficult. Though nowadays, because of the technology wings, things have become easier. You may contact people over Skype, Google Meet, Zoom. and other devices as well. So nowadays also on WhatsApp also people are trying. But then do you think that it is possible to conduct personal interview over all these devices? Okay, so there are people who do not react very favorably to personal interviews that are being conducted, even with the help of this digital media. But then also personal interview is one of the best authentic way to collect the data. And because of this personal interview, you not only meet new people, but you can go with a sort of questionnaires also, right? So next is the next questionnaire is the next method for data collection. So when a person is responding to the questionnaire, you are also trying to measure the readings on his face. So it is a way that facilitates us to collect the data, but they also have certain limitations. Maybe we are not in a position to travel, or the people whom we want to seek some kind of information may have certain piece of information, but it is very difficult for us to get an appointment at times. And if or he or she lives in a very remote corner, then again it becomes difficult, and again such people do not want to come over. So I mean the digital media today is very necessary for this personal interviews, but they also have certain kind of limitations. So in questionnaire, there is one facility that a person can prepare a questionnaire keeping on consideration several uh, pros and cons. Hence, the preparation of the questionnaire is an art. How do you frame the questionnaire? That is very difficult. And again, all these questionnaires will be written, but for that you can spend a little by paying the written postage, and then questionnaire may come back. So in questionnaire, people are at a leisure to answer your question and that they can help. Now with all these things in mind, you may go for data collection, but imagine whatever the data you have collected, this data has to be evaluated. And after evaluation, you go for note making because your ultimate aim is to write a report. So you have a lot of data before and you have to provide several heads and subheads, and all this you can do when you are going to organize the data, right? So you have a lot of information, you actually feel at times very confused as where to put that, where to put which information. So that is why you need to understand the principles of organizing the data. So what will you do? You will actually you have a data of different natures, so you will make certain heads, certain subheads, and you will put all the relevant issues of the relevant piece of information to a particular head. हम सेक्शन सब सेक्शन में डिवाइड करते हैं ना, तो दैट इज कॉल्ड द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑफ योर डेटा. Or you can prepare a blueprint of your report. So that is why organizing the data is one of the most challenging tasks of report writing. Hence, this has to be taken care of when you are organizing the data. But once you have organized the data, what is the next step? So the next step is when you have the data ready, the next step is to put into a proper format. And in order to understand the proper format, what you need to do is you need to understand the structure of a report. So as I said, a report is different, a formal report is different, an informal report is different, but because they have to follow a proper structure of or a proper layout. It is not like a poem, like where you will begin from anywhere, you will end anywhere, you will begin from the middle and it will end anywhere, nor it has to follow a proper structure. Every report, whatever the report it is, whether it is formal, whether it is informal, it has actually to cater all the requirements of a proper structure. And the very first thing you have to understand that you divide your report into three parts. So the very first part will be your prefactorial material, then your main elements, and then the back matter. But even before, let us try to understand what actually are the different structures that you are going to follow when you are going to write a report. So first, let us try to find out what are the important items that should be taken care of when you are going to write this prefactorial material. Every report will begin with a cover. Every report will have a cover. In certain organization, they provide you a proper format for a cover. But in case if they have not provided, then also you have to write a cover. You actually have to go for the cover. The cover has to be well organized. The cover actually requires the title of your report. It also requires who the report writers are. It also requires from where the report has been written, I mean the name of the organization. And then because you will be authorized by somebody to write the report, and authorized by it has to be submitted through a proper channel. It has to go through some official. So naturally you will provide that information also on your cover. Next to the cover, okay. So the cover will be a hard paper sort of things, and long reports are often bound reports. They are bound reports, and the cover also should ensure that the entire material is preserved properly. So it is bound. After the cover, you have the frontispiece. This frontispiece is actually a thin, transparent sheet. It can actually provide a sort of display of your entire report. Like you are supposed to provide a sort of picture. Like it is not only safeguards the picture, but it also excites the interest of the reader. And next to this front piece, we have a title page. So on the title page, you will find that title you have written on the cover also, right? But in title page, you are going to write the title, and if you have any kind of subtitle, then you are also going to provide the subtitle on the title page. Okay. Then in many organizations, they provide you with the like in any organization, they have a category of confidential report. So you should write that also. So you are writing this in you are writing your report from the organization. That then you have to take care of the forwarding letter also, because if it is going to submit, okay, if your report is going to be submitted through a proper channel, then somebody will forward your report. So forwarding letter is written just as you write a letter, but that report has to be forwarded. So it is being written by your boss or by your forwarding officer, or you can say the controlling officer. Then comes the preface. This preface is the first page by the writer himself. The writer here actually submits this report to the reader, and he will write this preface in a very brief manner. Like he will talk about what this report is all about and what it actually contains. So one has to understand, if you have looked at a preface of several reports, then you will come to know that how preface is written. Okay, but while writing the preface, you have to be very objective, right? Then comes acknowledgement. So your report cannot be written solely by you. Okay, so you have several peoples that might help you in one way or the another way. So here is a page where report writer can pay his gratitude to several people. And on the acknowledgement page, he actually thanks all the people who have some way or the other way help him in writing this report. And after acknowledgement, you have table of contents. So this table of contents actually provides you all the information which are in the report, but they are presented here in the form of table. So the table of content page bears this word table of content at the top center middle, right? And then the sub further divisions and subdivisions mentioned. along with the page number. And we have one more page that is called list of illustrations. It actually contains all the illustrations that you have mentioned in your report. Okay, sometimes reader, a pleasure to read the entire report if you look at what are the illustrations. They may also be interested to go on a particular page through this list of instructions, right? So after this, we have an abstract or summary. So it is very important to understand the difference between this abstract and this summary. So abstract, you all agree, is a very short piece, and summary will be longer summaries, right? So these summaries will tell you the entire report in a very short way. So these are the important items of prefatoral material. Okay. And after that, we will move to main elements. Like in main elements, you have the introduction, you have discussion, you have conclusion, and then recommendation. So abstract do not have the opportunity of providing figures and graphs, whereas in summary, in executive summary, you can do that. In summary, there are conclusions at times which an abstract cannot have. One should always remember that abstract of a report should only be 2% of the entire report, whereas an executive summary can be between 2.5 to 5 to 10% of your entire report. Okay, then we come to the main body. The main body is actually the heart of your report, where you have the data that you have interpreted, that you have analyzed, because now through this you are going to prepare your report, or you are going to prepare your reader to tell them what you have done in your report and what can take place, how you can lead them to action. So when you come to the main body will have four parts of your report. The main body can also be called the heart of the report, the main elements of the report, right? Whereas prefatoral may matter, prefatoral material, and called the front matter of the report. Okay. So prefatoral material is called the front matter of the report. Main elements are called the heart of the report, and we have then back matter. So the first page of the main body is introduction. So now question is how long your introduction can be. So there are certain important things that you have to be mentioned in your introduction, because through the introduction you are actually opening your report, and your readers would like to know what you have done in this report. And the introduction, you are actually mentioning the statement of authorization. You are not going to write the report yourself. You are authorizing somebody to write a report. So what is the statement of authorization here? And what is the background? Like when you are going to write the introduction first, you are going to write about the background, like what are the present condition, why this report is being written, what was the need to write this report, right? So then you will talk about the problem, I mean the hypothesis, the scope of the problem, the limitations, if any. Okay, so what are the different ways of data collection? Because most of the readers will either see your introduction or will see your conclusion. Okay, so the report writer will also try to match between the conclusion and an introduction, whether there is a sort of sequence or not, whether your introduction conforms to the conclusion or not. But then in your report there may be several technical terms, and since your report can be read by so many people, like I said, primary readers, secondary readers also. Okay, so then you have, after the introduction, you have discussion part. So I have been saying that the data that we have collected, that the data that we have interpreted, the data that we have analyzed, So the report writer must convince the reader that this is the situation, and this situation we are going to, we have collected the data, we have analyzed the data. Now you are actually going to orient your reader towards the conclusion by making a proper augmentation, by making the proper interpretation of your entire data. So it will have certain findings, it will have some kind of research problem. So the description of topics, the description of data, that will actually help you to draw all the inferences. So discussion is a longer one. That is why all the reports are to be numbered. And when you are numbering the report, the very first part of your report will be one, I mean, introduction. But the discussion, since they go on several pages, so you can have several divisions in the discussion part. Okay. Suppose sometimes, now let us assume that sometimes you begin with a problem. So that part, that beginning of a problem will be your first part, then second part will be something else, then again you have certain further subdivisions of that discussion, and so on. So through this you are going to ensure that you have worked on this report, and since you are the one person who has worked on this report, you know better about this, and based on this you are going to conclude. So the findings will be based not only on the fact but also on the logic. Now we came to the conclusion and recommendation. So there is a difference between the conclusion and recommendation. Okay. So while defining the report, we shared that a report will have a conclusion and will have a recommendation if required. Okay. So maybe it is not possible that every now and then you have to give the recommendation. It is not possible that every time you have to give the recommendation. You are actually being hired to write a report or to examine certain kind of situation, and you will provide your conclusion. So the report, the recommendation will be the part of those people who will take decision based on that. But if you have asked to recommend, then only you will recommend. And this recommendation conclusion page is the last page of your main element. So when you are going to conclude, like you are going to provide the findings, that is very important. Then you start with the problem. You start, then you have discussed the problem, and based on certain interpretation or based on certain analysis of the data have that you have provided, you have several figures that you have mentioned in your report, several charts, several figures. Okay, and these several figures and charts may be of different types. So depending upon your need, you actually makes the task easier, because you have been saying the use of illustration is very important. So you use the illustration part. Like you will use as many figures as you want, as many tables, as many charts as you want. So through illustration. Okay, so what you are going to do is, like, busy officials do not have very much time to look at the entire discussion. So what they will do is they simply go on to the charts, they will simply go to the figures and like that, and then they will try to find the solution. And then every chart and every figure has to be named, and you can say while you are writing. So while writing, you actually make a sort of sequence. You actually confirm that this is the figure number, and this figure is all about this. So you will provide some kind of description of that particular figure. So see that when you are discussing a certain things, alongside figure should also come. So the conclusion actually tells us the finding of your report. It also provides answers to the problem statement. You started with a problem, and based on that problem, you continued with the report with the help of your analysis and investigation. And all that finally you are going to conclude. So with the conclusion, you are going to end your discussion part. So it should have a logical inference. It means you cannot write something new in conclusion. you write whatever in the introduction, and whatever your findings that you have write in, you should write in conclusion. Okay, so what you have done in the discussion, that should you have to write. So that is why there should be a logical reference and judgment which are based on the analysis of your report, and that is how a report will finally come to conclude. So the conclusion is a shorter page, maybe 1 or 2 page, depending upon the length of your report. And then if recommendation is required, then only you will provide the recommendation. And you know there is a difference between the conclusion and the recommendation. In conclusion, you are very neutral, but when you are recommending, naturally you have to, like, I think, comes into the question. So when you recommend, so it should be kept in mind that do not ever recommend something that is not possible. A recommendation has to see the feasibility part. So when you recommend, then that action can be taken. Okay. So like, as I said that when you are discussing, okay, so you are actually confirming into the figures. But then the data that you may have collected either based on this telephonic interview, personal interview sheets, and personal observation. So all this information, where we have to cap that all information. So what can be done, because if you put it in the middle of your report, then it can actually block the flow of the readers. So in order to see, or in order to save your report from coming to halt, there are certain things that can be flushed towards the back, and all this can be supplemented. This is why they are used as a secondary material for your report. That is why it should be treated as back matter. So the back matter actually consists of supporting documents which can either be in the form of table, questionnaire, interview sheets, statistical sheets, methodology, etc., etc. So in case the number of all these things is too many, then what will you do? Suppose in one you have interview, in second you have questionnaires, in other you will have certain kind of personal observation. So how you will provide this information? So you cannot put directly in your report that then you actually can have several appendices. Okay, so if you have several appendixes, then you can name as appendix A, appendix B, appendix C, like that, appendix 1, 2, 3, and so on. So this is very important. And then comes, we have list of references. So whatever discussion you are going to make based on the data, and this data has to be analyzed, but you took this information from somewhere. Okay, and this here is one place where you can show some gratitude to that information from where you have collected. So suppose, okay, so in list of references, you are actually showing the gratitude to the source, right? Suppose you have taken some information from book. Sorry. Suppose the information you have taken from a journal, from an article, from a paper, whatsoever. That is why you are going to provide a list of references. So while one does a report or writes a report, one consults so many books, so many articles, so many newspapers, so many journal articles whatsoever. So for that, there is a separate section which can actually save us from plagiarism. You know, nowadays a lot of things are being plagiarized. And what is plagiarism? Plagiarism is when you are quoting somebody works and you are not acknowledging it. You then you are perhaps committing a sort of unethical practice. So it is always better that you have consulted, and if you are referred to, like, it is better to mention them in the list of references or in the list of bibliography. So whenever we talk about the bibliography, it is actually, bibliography is a list of books the author of the report writer consult. while writing this report. Maybe sometimes all of us know you are not in a position to read all the books, but there are people who can have some interest in reading the book. So, so through your bibliography, he or she must get the information about a particular book. And then you have a glossary. In glossary, you are going to mention some of the terms, and this is in alphabetical order. So, and then you have an index in which you have so many technical words that are important that you have mentioned in your report should be written. So, this that can be provided towards the end in the index page. So now it is very important for all of us to understand how the entries in the bibliography are mentioned. Okay, so they can start with, first you will write the author name. Suppose the author and the author name has is to be written in a different manner. For example, my name is Deepika Agrawal. So what should I do is I can write Agrawal, comma Deepika. So I mean the surname comes first, then the name. And after the author name comes, the title of the book is written, name of the editor if you have this book as an edited one, then number of the journal, okay, if number of the volume if it is from a journal, and then the name of the series, place of the publication, name of the publisher, year of publication, and then at last you will write page number. Okay, so this is actually the normal entry. And now when we talk about documenting our report, we must ensure that what order and what practices we should follow. Because there are two ways you can do, well, in two ways write entries, you can order your entries in bibliography either through MLA or APA. Okay, so bibliography is a complete list of textual references and other words which ignite the writers to think, and also which spread, and you have augmented your thought process. Okay, since it is a comprehensive, and then you have a list of references. Only the difference between this list of references and bibliography is that list of references is very specific. I mean, page numbers are given there. Number of references you can provide in the, if you have a limited number of references, then you can provide that in the form of footnotes, which can be possible only on the given page. Like if you are writing a, like 5 to 10 references, okay, तो आप उसको क्या कर सकते हैं, you can write as a footnote on the same page. But if the numbers are too many, then you have to number them and you have to make a list of references. So we have some examples. Name of the author is Azaz Ahmed. Okay, so how you will write this? First, you have write Ahmed, comma Azaz. Then you will actually write paper book, or you can say chapter from a book or an article from a book. Okay, then you this will come under inverted commas. Then the name of the book, then the press. Then you will write, here will come first, I mean after the name of the author, but in MLA style, this is okay. Okay, then you have this print. So when we have all this example, now I think the stage is well set that you can go for report writing. For report writing, we actually need some language. Okay, because language is a very complex process. When I say work, I only mean writing. Everything else is just odd jobs. So when you have all the information, all the pieces of information, then then you are actually going to write your report. Okay, so use simple language, does not use any kind of complex words. So you should write your report in a very simple. And I have already told you the structure of your report, that what is going to be included in your report. Then you have to write a report in that particular format. So with this, I will end my this session. Do you have any doubts? Then you can ask. In abstract, you are telling that what is going to do in your report, what are the methods, what are the techniques that you are going to use. But in conclusion part, you are actually drawn some inferences from your findings. Like, we have used this technique and what is the result? This is the particular outcome of our findings. So this is the main difference between abstract and conclusion. You are concluding like we have done this and this is the result. So we are concluding in this way. And in abstract, you are not concluding anything. You are just trying that we are going to use this particular method, and these are my find. This will this is the data collection methods that we are going to use. And in conclusion, you are actually trying to draw some inferences from your findings. Any other doubts? Welcome.
Requesting participants, if they have any queries, they can either directly unmute themselves and ask the question to ma'am, or they can even drop it in the chat box.
Okay, so I am dropping my email ID on the chat box. You can contact me if you have any doubts.
So ma'am has dropped her email ID in the chat box. Yes, ma'am. I think, ma'am, the participants don't have query because your slides and your presentation was self-explanatory and you have explained in a very nice and easy way. So it has helped each and every participant in here to understand that how to go about with report writing in any of the modes, where whichever kind of report they are preparing. So, ma'am, it was like a pleasure having you here. The whole LCIT team, AICTE, and CSVTU team is glad to have you here for this session.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for calling me.
We are looking forward to more such association with you in future. We'll be glad to have you again in one of the other sessions like this in future.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a great day, ma'am. Would request
Thank you.
you, ma'am, to please share this presentation with us so we can share it with the participants also.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. I'll share this presentation.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Requesting all the participants to check that Namrata ma'am has dropped the link for feedback and quiz. We have dropped it twice. So I request you all to fill in both the forms. And we'll be closing with the session after 5 to 10 minutes, max 5 minutes, I should say, because we are already it's already approx 3:30. So we'll go ahead to the closing of the session. I request you all to please fill both the feedback and the quiz form, or else if you are running short of time, please I request each and every one of you to copy both the links and paste it in your browser so that you can fill it even after closure of the session. So please make sure, please make sure that you fill the form so that it becomes easy for us to do the evaluation at